always thrilled when I interview fabulous guests, and this guest today is no exception. And it is my esteemed honor to have Dr. Danny Brassell here on the Power Transformation Podcast. And for purposes of our show, throughout the show, I will call him Danny, but I acknowledge people that have that doctorate because that is not easy to get, and he has earned it. But welcome to the Power Transformation Podcast, Danny.
Thanks so much for having me, Alethea. We're like two peas in a pod, you and me. I really appreciate all that you do. You're spreading some joy around the world. Keep on doing it.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. And I'm so grateful, y'all, for Danny, because even in getting this scheduled, there was a glitch on my end, a big blunder I kept making. And he was so gracious to me because people wouldn't have had patience. I couldn't figure it out, and I finally did. And he still showed up for his interview. But you do something amazing and powerful now to help people with their voice. And we're going to talk about that. But your entire story is quite powerful, transformative. It's really exciting. It's had its highs, its lows, everything in between. But prior to us getting started, I always like to start interviews with a nice icebreaker question so that we get to know you better. And so, Danny, this is my question for you. What is your favorite, or let me say one of your favorite movies? And tell us why.
Oh, goodness. Well, my favorite movie of all time is always, it's a standard answer for most guys. It's The Godfather. I absolutely love The Godfather.
Oh.
Great book, too. The book is different. The book's even better. But I love The Godfather. As to why, it's the great American family story. It's just they happen to be in the mafia.
Now, out of all of the movies, do you like the first one the best out of all of them?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I think everybody says the second one's the best, and I understand why they say that. I like individual scenes in the second one, but I just love. There's just a lot of. I mean, my favorite scene in the Godfather is just a scene between Michael and the Don talking. And, Michael says, "Oh, my son Anthony, he's smarter than me. 4 years old, he's already reading the funny pages." And the Godfather's like, "Oh, already reading the fun," and I'm like, "Wow, it's just such a nice, intimate moment between a father and son. To me, it's a wonderful scene."
Do any parts of the Godfather resonate with you personally? Any aspects of it?
I hope not. Michael's so calm at the beginning, and even at the end when he's killing all these people, he's. I don't actually. You know what? That's actually a great question, Alethea. I'm going to tell you. I had a Godfather moment once. I was speaking in front of 5,500 people, and right before it, I looked at my hand, and it was steady as a rock. And there's a scene in The Godfather when some assassins come to kill the Godfather, and Michael and this other guy. They act like they have guns, and so the guys walk away, and the other guy, he's shaking trying to light a cigarette, and Michael, he lights it for him, and he notices his hand steady as a rock. So yeah, I did have a Godfather moment.
See, I ask those extension questions for a reason. I'm like, there's something in it. But I have to admit, if you are listening to this also, the way Danny is dressed, he's got that mob boss look to him. You look so cool and just smooth and everything. I'm looking at you like your hair is laid from top to... Oh my gosh, Danny, you are looking great. I said, that is the Godfather all the way. And so as we move on with this is a question for you. $1 million question. I don't have $1 million that I'm going to pay you for this, but question is this: who is Dr. Danny Brassell?
Well, it's a deep one, Alethea. Well, if I was going to write an autobiography, it would be called Pivots, because I feel like I've already lived 9 lives. 30 years ago, I was a journalist covering President Bush Sr. in the 1992 presidential election. I loved my job. I got to meet every editor of every major daily. And one editor offered me the city beat for $16,500 a year. Meanwhile, a friend told me they were hiring teachers in South Central Los Angeles for $25,000 a year. So, Alethea, I became an educator for the noblest of reasons, for the high pay. And I actually fell in love with teaching. I've taught all age levels, from preschoolers all the way up to rocket scientists. I can make that claim because I used to teach English as a second language to engineering
Mhm.
students at the University of Southern California. And in 2005, my wife and I attended a real estate seminar, which turned out to be a scam, and we lost everything financially. And I could give you the woe is me story, but I'm a positive person. I learned a lot from that experience. First of all, I learned that my wife is my soulmate. I put her through the ringer, and she stood right by me. She's an incredible human being. Second of
Mhm.
all, I learned money's not everything because you can lose money just like that.
Mhm.
Third, I try not to judge other people, Alethea, because if I was somebody who saw what I had done, I would have said, well, you deserve that. But now I realize, unless you know everything about a person, you really don't know anything about a person. Fourth, I became a Christian, which I'm always embarrassed to confess. It took a catastrophe. But the more I read my Bible, I realize I'm not the first screw up to find Jesus. And
Mhm.
fifth, I didn't want to file bankruptcy, and my accountant said, well, you have to earn this much more money this year. So I started speaking on the side, and I hit that number right on the number. Well, the next year, Alethea, he gave me a much higher number, and I hit that number right on the number. So in year three, I thought, well, maybe I should set a higher number. And basically,
Mhm.
during one of the worst economic downturns in American history, I was able to build up a highly lucrative speaking business, which eventually attracted the attention of some pretty famous people and companies who were asking me to coach them. And I have to admit, I have resisted coaching for a long time, Alethea, because you need to know this about me. I'm obsessive compulsive. I will not let you fail. I will be on your back, holding you
Mhm.
accountable until you succeed. Well, now that I work primarily with business owners and entrepreneurs and executives, I find they're highly motivated. They do the work, and it's been some of the most rewarding work that I've ever done. So you can take me down whichever path you choose, my friend.
Mhm. So let's go back some because you're definitely accomplished. But at the core and the heart of who you are as a person, in terms of your character, your personality, and your traits, how would you describe yourself in terms of your character? Who, if we peeled back all of the layers from everything that you've done, all of the experiences, who are you at the core of you being Danny?
Well, hopefully, I'm a kind person. That's very important in
Mm,
this counts. And then the thing a lot of people don't see underneath is the relentlessness. I will not stop. I will work harder
mhm,
than you. I was speaking to schools in 2018 in India, and after one of my presentations, all the kids came up all excited and talking to everybody. And then I noticed there's a little boy and he's got tears in his eyes, and I noticed he's missing his left arm.
mhm,
He's about 6 years old, and he looks up at me. He's like, "How can I succeed?" And so I crouch down. I get to his eye level. I'm like, when I was your age, I went to 18 different schools before I was 12 years old. Everybody called me stupid
mhm,
because I stuttered. And
mhm,
eventually I went to a school where a teacher, she worked one on one with me and she would sing things to me. And I found I could sing and I didn't have my stutter when I sang. And I eventually
mhm.
lost my stutter and I became a swan. But I looked at that little boy in the eyes and like, isn't it interesting that the little boy people used to make fun of because he couldn't talk right now gets paid ridiculous sums of money to travel the world to do what? And he gets the biggest grin on his
Mhm.
face. He's like, speak. I'm like, don't let anybody ever tell you what you cannot do. Everything is
That's
possible.
right.
And so,
Mhm,
one of the things I loved about being a teacher was being a positive influence. I'm a very good encourager, Alethea. I will
mhm.
get you, I always told my students sometimes you need somebody else to believe in you before you believe in yourself. I believe in all of you. They only give me the best and the brightest. Let's go out and make this world a better place. So I think
Yeah,
if a kid hears that enough times, they actually start believing it.
that's right. That's right. And when you talk about encouraging and being an encourager, when you look back on your journey, especially in your early formative years of living with a stutter, of course, that's a part of my journey also. But who was someone in your life growing up that you could say was a huge encourager in your life who kept you inspired and gave you that self motivation to be able to move forward?
I'm very blessed, Alethea. I've had all kinds of great encouragers throughout my life,
Uh-huh.
all kinds of great teachers and mentors. My parents were wonderful. I'll just give you one example. When I finally quit teaching, I was at a party and my mom was there and she was speaking to my high school English teacher. And they didn't
Mm,
they didn't know I was listening in on their conversation. And my high school English teacher said, "Oh, I'm so sad that Danny's leaving teaching. He was such a great teacher." And my
mhm.
mom replied, "But Danny's good at everything."
I love it. I
That's
love that.
yeah, my wife. She grew up in Singapore in the most negative environment on the planet, with people telling her what she couldn't do all the time. I have a
Hmm.
photograph of me when I was 4 years old wearing space boots, a San Diego Charger jersey, a sheriff's badge, and a fireman's helmet because I was going to be the first ever astronaut, professional football player, police officer, and firefighter. That's the world I grew up in, Alethea. I hope
Hmm.
every kid gets to experience. And I, teaching in the inner city, I saw a lot of my students didn't have that type of encouragement. And so
Hmm.
it became a burden to me. I'm like, I need to make sure that these kids realize what they're capable of. This is a big theme throughout my life.
Exactly. And also with that encouragement and you being relentless, there's a book I read some years ago, Relentless, that was one of the best books ever that talks about having that type of a spirit in you. And for being a person, you who had a stutter and your voice being that hindrance in a sense, you didn't let that stop you. And so, what I want to do is make a transition here into the fact of what you mentioned early on is how you speak everywhere. You're an international speaker. You use your voice. Your voice is power. But people may see you and see who you are now and say, wow, he's got it made. You know, he already said he's a positive person. So that means challenges didn't really come his way. But that's not what you said early on, Danny. And so I want to talk briefly about this concept of the power of your voice, but I want to take it back. How did you use that power of your voice, even in your earlier days as a journalist? And then what was the power of your voice? How did you use that, Danny, to overcome the obstacle of getting caught up in a scam that was really out of your control?
I think it's all, I mean, I'm very blessed. I have a positive attitude. I know not everybody
Hmm.
has a positive attitude. I
Hmm.
have always had a positive attitude. For those that don't have a positive attitude, I would encourage them to read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning when he's in a concentration camp and the Nazis killed his family and took everything from him. He realized the one thing they can't take away from me is my attitude.
That's right.
I respond. And that's why I love the movie Rocky. I mean, Rocky's not the finesse fighter, but
Yes.
he gets knocked down, he pops right back up. It's actually one of my favorite scenes in any movie is the night before he fights Apollo Creed. He's in bed with Adrian. He's like, Adrian, I'm going to lose tomorrow, but I don't care. All I want to do is go the distance with the champ. And most people forget at the end of Rocky, Apollo actually beats him. People forget.
That's right.
But Rocky
Hmm.
went the entire distance. And so that scene foreshadowed he accomplished his goal, which was to go the distance. And that's what I love about him. And just the person, Sylvester Stallone as a person, the story behind the making of Rocky is even more extraordinary than
Hmm.
Rocky itself. He was down to his last $100 and they were offering him $100,000, but he wasn't going to be allowed to star in the movie. And he
Hmm.
refused. He said, no, put me in the movie. I'll take less money. I have to be in this movie. And I mean, it changed his career, it changed
Yeah.
cinematic history. Uh, I think that the word obstacle is just another word for opportunity. I look back when I'm not a person that usually likes to look back, but if I am going to look back, I look back and it's all of the worst things that ever happened to me that spurred me to do something better. I mean,
Hmm.
God is really good about opening better doors. And for those people that are low right now, I was speaking at an event a couple of months ago, and the first two speakers talked about enjoying the journey to the audience. And I guess I was feeling facetious that day. And I got up on stage and I said, you ever notice the people who say enjoy the journey have already succeeded? You know, when they were broke and couldn't make their rent and they're starving to death, where they're like, man, I'm really enjoying this journey. This is a lot of fun. This is the
Hmm.
stupidest advice I've ever heard. I mean, you can reflect back and look back at how that journey, how that negative experience helped fuel a positive. But I know there's a lot of people out there feeling low, but I know that if you feel low, surrounding yourself with people that are negative and watching the news and feeding your mind with all kinds of negative things, that's not going to help you. President Eisen, President Eisenhower, when he was a general, he said pessimism never won any battle. Exactly, exactly right. I don't
Hmm.
know of any pessimist that did amazing things. I know a lot of people that did amazing things with a lot of people telling them, you can't do this, you can't do this. And then they did it. And
Hmm.
those are the stories that always inspire me.
And so, as a journalist, tell us about the importance of your voice during your years as a journalist.
Journalism was interesting. I kind of had to leave it, Alicia, because the reason I
Mm.
became a journalist was I wanted to be the next Charles Kuralt and go around America.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to do all these positive
This is
stories.
Charles Carroll. Yeah. Uh-huh.
On the road. He was always great, and he was always pointing out. I mean, this is the problem in America right now: is everybody's always looking at the negatives. I'm like, but Americans are actually a lot more common, and we have a lot more in common than you like to think about. And there's
I
also,
actually agree. Yeah.
uh,
Hmm.
I mean, there's just so many great things out there, and that's why I became a journalist was to expose those things. And what did they do? They put me on the political beat, which was
Hmm.
the most annoying thing in the world. And I was at a press conference with the president, and the president really said nothing. And I looked at six of my colleagues, and the lead that they wrote was so negative. And I looked at them like, he didn't say anything that bad. I mean, I know you can't be objective, but you
Hmm.
can't be fair. And that's kind of why I don't watch the news anymore because I just don't see any fairness. I'm like, you might not like the person, but like let's be fair to the person and give them a shot. And I just don't see that
Hmm.
with everybody now. Everybody
Hmm.
likes to do the negative. And I'm
Hmm.
not a negative person. I'm a positive person, and that's why I started writing books.
Yeah.
When I was a middle school teacher, I was the only teacher in my school that none of my students were ever tardy, and the reason was because I was started off class with a Paul Harvey story. I don't know if you remember Paul Harvey, Alethea. When I was growing up,
I don't know.
he would come on the radio every day at 12:15 and say, I'm Paul Harvey with the rest of the story. And for
Okay.
5 minutes, he's telling you a story and you're trying to guess who's he talking about or what's the company or whatever. And my kids, they couldn't get enough of it. They loved it. But the problem with
Hmm.
Paul Harvey, he's passed on and his stories were about like Fred Astaire and Sears Roebuck.
Oh, yeah.
Today, kids don't know anything about that. And
Sure
so
don't.
yeah, so I wrote the book Leadership Begins with Motivation as an homage to Paul Harvey, but
Hmm.
my stories are more updated people like Elon Musk and Jeff
Hmm.
Bezos and stuff like that. But
Yep.
it's interesting, Alethea. After I wrote the book, I read it. I'm like, huh, that's interesting. Completely unintentionally, I noticed a lot of my stories were white male Americans. And
Hmm.
so that's why I wrote the book Misfits and Crackpots, is that most of the stories in this book are women, minorities, and international people, because I think there's so many extraordinary stories out there, and people need to hear those stories. And that's
Hmm.
actually the most fun I've ever had writing a book because I was like, wow, nobody ever told me this story. And I just love, like, there's a story that basically inspired the book of these two women. They were
Hmm.
both choreographers in New York. One was named Martha and one was named Agnes. And
Hmm.
Agnes has just opened up her third musical. And the audience seems to like it, but the critics have torn it to pieces. And she looks at Martha. She's like, I give up. I think I'm just going to close down the show. And Martha looks at her. She's like, you can't do that. It's not for
Wow.
some critic to tell you how good your work is. It isn't even up to you to tell you how good your work is. But if you
Hmm.
close the show, you're denying your gift. There's only one you. There's never been another you. There's never going to be another you. You need to keep this show open and give the world your gift. Well, Martha was Martha Graham,
Oh, yes.
she's considered the mother of modern dance. She won the Kennedy
Hmm.
Center Honors Award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Well, her friend was Agnes DeMille. She won the
Mm.
same honors. She became the first woman to have three concurrent musical hits on Broadway, and she kept the show open. She just changed the name to Oklahoma.
Okay. Yes. Oh, wow. Wow.
And so that's what I like. I like stories that you're going. I mean, so I like here's one. Can I just give you one from the leader? This is from Leadership Against. I'll give you a real quick one.
Sure. Go ahead.
This is how I get kids excited about reading. So I write on the morning of January 17th, 1977, Gary Gilmore, in a plain t shirt, strapped into a chair with a bag over his head, awaited a firing squad of 5 law enforcement officers to execute him at the state prison in Draper, Utah. Convicted of murdering a gas station employee and motel manager in Utah the year before, Gilmore would be the first person in the United States to be executed in nearly a decade.
Mm.
Shortly before his execution, prison officials asked Gilmore if he had any last words. Neither he nor anyone else that day would know the impact of those words. Over 10 years later, in 1988, Dan Wieden, an advertising executive who co founded the Wieden and Kennedy Agency in Portland, Oregon, made something of a morbid pitch to a struggling fashion company. He recalled the inmate's final words and used a slight variation for his pitch, and seemingly everyone hated his idea for the company's new slogan. Trust me on this one, Wieden implored the company's co founder. And the co founder, his company, and the public have not looked back since. The co founder's name was Phil Knight. The struggling brand he co founded was a shoe company called Nike. And
Mhm.
advertising executive Dan Wieden slightly altered death row inmate Gary Gilmore's final words, let's do it, into the phrase, just do it.
Let's do it. Wow.
Those are that's how I
Yeah.
get my kids all excited about it, like storytelling.
And so you spend these years as a teacher,
Mhm.
and I want to fast forward up to who you are now, because with, everything, the premise, of course, of this show is to really talk about, while we have such successful leading lives, we talk about the power within ourselves to really transform and to change lives around us as well as our own. And so, how then, Danny, do you go from journalist to healing from this real estate scam to teaching to who you are now as a professional speaker and having this mindset of no limitations on you? I too am a generally positive person, and sometimes people can interpret that as what they call toxic positivity. It's not toxic positivity because we acknowledge the reality and the challenges of life, but it's not something that we tend to dwell on. They happen, you just roll with it. And we go through our challenges. We don't stay stuck there. So it doesn't mean that everything in life is always perfect, but we can choose to transform our mind and our thoughts to focus on that which is uplifting, which is life giving, and can really change the entire pattern of this world. So take us on the journey specifically about how you transitioned into a full time professional speaker. Did it just click one night? Did you have an epiphany? How exactly does that happen?
Well, financial necessity required it because I was broke from the real estate scam,
Yeah.
and I was a certain amount of money. My daughter asked me about that the other day. She's like, "How much did you make when you were a teacher?" I'm like, well, "Let me just say this: my I made a certain amount of money my first year as a teacher, and the first couple of years I started speaking, I was making that in a month." And then
Praise
about a
God.
year
Praise the
later,
Lord.
I could make that in a week. And I'm like, and then about a year later, I could make that in a day. And I'm like, and now I make that in 45 minutes.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
that was the motivation. But as far as an epiphany, I had a good kick in the butt. Like I needed to provide for my family,
Yes,
and
sir.
it wasn't easy. Fortunately, I was speaking at an academic conference, and you know, having taught, I learned that what works with 12th graders does not necessarily work with kindergartners, but what works with kindergartners works with all age levels.
Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah.
I call New York, New York. I mean, I call kindergarten New York, New York, because if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere because they have about a
Sure
7
can.
yeah. And so even when I was presenting at academic conferences, I brought like a lively element to my speaking. Well, it just
Hmm.
happened that two headhunters for speaking bureaus were in the audience. And so I got hired by two speaking bureaus that same day. And they were both a little bit different. One company, they had me put together a full day presentation. And basically, the way that company would work is I'd get up in the morning at 6 a.m., I'd get down to the conference room at 7 a.m., I'd do my presentation from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., I'd pack up, we'd go to the airport and fly to the next city, and we'd repeat the same thing the next day. So it would be like Monday, Seattle, Tuesday, Salt Lake City, Wednesday, Denver, Thursday, St. Louis, Friday, Charlotte, North Carolina, fly home for
Hmm.
the weekend, repeat the next week. The other company, the other speaking bureau, they did 2 day conferences in different states. And the person running the program who hired me, she said, well, um, we hire people. The more different breakout sessions and keynotes you have, the more we can hire you. And I needed money, Alethea. So I said, well, that's great because I have 5 keynotes and 45 breakout sessions. And she's like, oh my gosh, we can hire you. I had nothing. And this is before
That's
AI. I
right.
could create 5 keynotes and
Mhm.
45 75-minute
But you
breakouts, but
had that
good.
teacher superpower, Danny. You had that teacher superpower, though.
Well, it's a matter of just saying, yeah, like sometimes you just have to, there's a great poem by Christopher Loeb. He says, come to the edge, we might fall. Come to the edge, it's too high. Come to the edge. And they came and he pushed and they flew. Sometimes you need
Mm,
somebody else to push you for you to fly.
yeah.
Or maybe it's a circumstance. And so
Mhm.
financial
So,
necessity was a circumstance. And so I was
yeah,
hustling like you wouldn't believe. And
exactly.
even, I'm sorry, go for it, Alicia.
No, no, no. Yeah. So,
So
look,
even
I'm
when,
totally captivated. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, even when I started, so I mean, it's not like people. I'm working with a woman right now, and she wants to get paid $10,000 an hour as a speaker. And I asked her, I'm like, "Do you look like a $10,000 an hour speaker?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Do you have a website?" She's like, "No." I'm like, "Do you have a speaking reel?" "No." "Do you have video testimonials of past clients?" "No." "Do you have a brochure?" "No." "Let me ask you a question. Do you look like a $10,000 an hour speaker?" And I'm not trying to put her down. I'm saying
Yeah.
you need to look the role. I mean, you don't see the president of the United States delivering the State of the Union in a tank top with his hat backwards. Like
Mhm.
you got to look the part. That's what I
That's
always
right.
emphasize. Like when I was teaching I taught eighth grade special ed. It wasn't special ed. It was 16 boys. Nobody else wanted to teach. 8 African American, 8 Latino. If their life wasn't miserable enough, they got stuck with the white dude as a teacher. And I
Mm,
always used to say to them, like, hey, watch Sports Center tonight. Watch the way the coaches talk and watch the way the players talk. In class, I want us to practice talking like coaches. And what I was trying to say to them is, I'm not saying it's fair. I'm saying all of us, we get judged on the way we speak the same way as the way we dress. And
that's
so
right.
all of us have to understand that there's a different way of speaking in a professional setting as with your friends. And it doesn't matter who you are. All of us speak differently with our friends. And so I wanted the kids to understand that. And so we practiced that. When I first started speaking, um, it was even with the speakers bureaus, I was making $700 a day for a full day of presentations, and I learned a
Mhm.
very valuable lesson, Lethea. So my public library asked if I would speak for free. They said we're going to have 500 people there. I'm like, that sounds great. 4 people showed up. 2 of them were my realtors. The other 2 was a Hispanic couple that didn't speak a word of English, but I believe in always giving 110%. So I did
Mhm.
everything. I did as much in Spanish as I could. We all laughed. We had a good time. Well, here's the teaching point. The Hispanic woman was taking English classes at the Adult Literacy Center. She recommended me to do a 45-minute keynote for $4,000, which was 6 times my speaking fee at the time.
Uh-huh.
That's when I learned, people always ask, why do I do so many podcasts? I'm like, 2 reasons. First of all, it gives me reps. You've already asked me
Mhm.
some questions nobody's asked me before. I'm like, good. Now I have an answer. How do I make that a better answer for the next podcast?
Mhm.
Getting my reps in. But secondly, my business partner, Coach Jimmy, he's like, only one person listens to that podcast. It's a waste of time. And I learned long ago, I said, I always tell him, like, I don't care how many people are listening. All I care is who's listening. If you
And
only
you tell Jimmy more than one person listens to this
but
podcast.
even then,
Yeah, no, no, no.
hey, if only one person's listening to your podcast and it's Oprah Winfrey, that's not a bad person to have listening to your
I totally understand. No, he's
yeah,
right though. Yeah, I
and this is
understand.
even more important, Alethea. There could be somebody that's on the brink of doing something they shouldn't do to themselves because they feel so down, but they listen to you and you lift them up and they're like,
That's right.
I mean,
I understand. I was just making a
oh,
joke. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
I know
Right.
that. And so like, and even when I first started speaking, I would speak for free all the time. But so here's a strategy for people out there if they want to be speakers. I always do a contract, even if I'm speaking for
Yep.
free. And in my
hmm
contract, it would say, when I first started out, it would say, I will waive my $5,000 an hour speaking fee. I wasn't making $5,000 an hour, but they didn't know that. And I said, in exchange for 10 things. And so I had 10 items on the list. It was like, one, I want a video testimonial from your organization's president. Two, I want three written testimonials from people in the audience. Three, if you're videotaping, I want to copy the tape. Four,
Hmm.
if your organization does a monthly newsletter, I want to write a column for the next year. Five, give me two referrals to other organizations. And so by doing, I
That's
mean,
smart.
I wondered
Yeah.
if anybody would do any of them. Well, here at Alethea, everybody did at least one of them. Some of them did all 10. I couldn't believe it. But that's what, within 6 months, I literally had hundreds of video testimonials. I had all kinds of video footage of me speaking. And so I'm looking the part then, because that's what I was trying to do is when a person Googles me, if they haven't heard of me, I want them to Google me and look and be like, man, how the heck have I never heard of this person? They're all over the place.
Hmm.
That's what I want to do. And so it's a big hustle. And I mean, I'm a hard worker. Like I don't care I read biographies all the time, Alethea. I don't care what you're looking at. If a person's successful, they didn't get there by chance. They worked their tail off. And
Yeah.
people love to look at the glory. They look at Michael Jordan making the game winning basket. They don't look at him when he's in the gym 6 hours a day, pump and iron, and then spending another 4 hours on the court practicing every single move and every shot. I mean, that guy worked his tail off. He deserved everything. People
Hmm.
don't look at the hard work behind it. They just want, Gary Player, the golfer, he has a perfect swing, and it got old. People telling him, "I wish I had your swing." Finally, one day he heard a guy say, I had your swing." He said, "No, you don't. You don't want to get up at dawn every single day and hit 1,000
Hmm.
balls until your palms are bleeding, and then you have to bandage them, and then you have to hit another 1,000 balls. No, no, you wish you had my swing and didn't have to do anything to get it."
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And so then, how did you, so you knew that you needed this. So it reminds me of the late actress and singer Della Reese, and
Mm,
was asked how did she get into entertainment. And there's an interview, I think it was from Emmy TV Legends is what it was called at the time. It's called something else now. But she tells the interviewer one word: hunger.
mm,
And the interviewer was somewhat young and said, "What do you mean?" And Della Reese is like, "You don't know what it means to be hungry? I had bills to pay, I had food to eat, I was hungry." So that's how she got into entertainment. She had all types of jobs, but she knew her singing could really be that ticket for her. And so I love how you're just so transparent, especially with you being a husband, a father. You had a family you had to take care of. And especially in our world and in our society, when it comes to men who aren't working, they are looked on worse than a woman that might not be working. So you had to provide. And so, with that being said, Danny, I could talk to you all day, but we're coming to a close here. When when we talk about using your speaking as a business, and you've given some jewels and some tips and some tricks for a lot of people, take us more into specifically what themes or topics do you speak on, and what led you down that road?
Well, I speak on lots of different things. Really, now most of my business is out actually coaching other people how to use speaking to grow their business. I mean, I do
Yes.
work with some speakers, but most of the people I work with are business people that are looking to grow their business, and they're either terrified of speaking on stages or they have no interest on it. And so, what I teach them is a simple formula. So, former teacher, everything I do either rhymes or it's alliterative. And so I take clients through what I call the 5 C's process. Now I have two business partners, Coach Jimmy Hayes Nelson and Dave Ward. I call us the professor, the performer, and the producer because my
Hmm.
background is academia. Coach Jimmy was a Broadway actor and Dave's an attorney. And we all bring different points of view to how to create what we call a well-crafted story. So the 5 C's are: before we put together your presentation, we need to ask two clarity questions. Who is your audience and what is the problem that you solve? Once you're clear on both of those answers, then we can craft the presentation, which is to connect with your audience, teach meaningful content that serves your audience, give one clear call to action, and finally have an emotional close that gets people popping out of their seats because they want to run to work with you. And so that's what I do is show people, so for example, we're working with a woman. By the way, whenever I talk about clients, I give them different names. If you talk
Of course, yeah.
Coach Jimmy's a Broadway actor. He loves to name drop everybody we work with, but I believe in
Uh-huh.
discretion. And so, Dr. Kathy, she is a nutrition expert, and so she was ending her presentation with her offer, which is work with me for 90 days for only 1997, and that's how she ended her presentation. I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, big mistake." And she's like, "What do you mean?"
Mhm.
I'm like, "Well, you have to understand, every audience has what I call a Joe Friday and a Julia Roberts. And so we're going to be stereotypical and call them the husband and wife. The
Mhm.
husband is Joe Friday. He's sitting there during your presentation looking skeptically at you, like, who's this person? What are they trying to sell me? What do I got to do? How long does
Mhm.
it take? And a really well crafted presentation addresses all of those questions to the satisfaction of Joe Friday. But Dr. Kathy was ending with Joe, and she was ignoring Julia Roberts, the wife. Julia Roberts, she doesn't care how much it costs. She just wants to feel good. I mean, I always listen to
Mhm.
Alicia's podcast because it makes me feel good. It's like my long lost sister. I learn all kinds
Mhm.
of things every time I listen. And so she needed something to have an emotional uplifting at the end of her presentation. And so I asked, "Well, what do you want your audience to do?" And she couldn't figure it out for a couple of minutes. And then finally she mentioned, she's like, "I want people to understand they can't do this on their own." I'm like, "Oh, you need to hire an expert story." And she's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "I'll give you an example. I'll leave you all today with this. Many years ago, my wife and I, we had theater tickets. We were dressed to the nines, driving to the theater when we got a flat tire. My wife said, "Well, I'll call AAA, get us a tow truck." I looked at her. I'm like, "You don't have to call AAA. I'm a man. I can fix a flat tire." So I got out of the car and I opened up the trunk and I got the spare tire and then I got the pumper thingy and I got the big jack thing and started trying to take off the nuts. And basically, 27 minutes later, I have grease all over my hands. I look up. My wife is standing beside the car, shaking her head like, "I could have done so much better than this guy. I haven't done anything." Well, unbeknownst to me, she had called AAA 27 minutes earlier. And this tow truck shows up, and this 17-year-old punk hops out of the tow truck and proceeds to fix my flat tire in 3 minutes flat. Folks, I think there are times in life when all of us think we can do it on our own. But if you want to save time, you want to save money, you want to save a whole lot of headache and embarrassment, you hire an expert. So now what I've done is I've taken a story as a metaphor that now is
Mhm.
leaving the audience with the thought, I've tried other diets in the past. Maybe what I should do is hire Dr. Kathy because she's the expert and can help me. And so this is an exercise. Everybody in your audience, you can do this too, Alethea, is later on, get in a comfortable chair with a pen and paper, libation of choice. And for an hour, I want you to write down every story that's ever happened to you. And I don't mean the
That's
entire
right.
not the entire story, just triggers, like the time I locked myself out of the car in front of Costco, the time Dad spilled mustard on his tie when we went to that fancy restaurant. You'll find in an hour you can come up with hundreds of stories like this. So that's the first part of the exercise. The second part of the exercise is then I want you to think about, what's this story really about? Oh, this is a story about never giving up. Oh, this is a story about my priorities in life. Oh, this is a story about love. On my computer, I have hundreds of files with literally tens of thousands of stories. So when I'm putting together a presentation and I want my audience to have a certain emotional response, I know exactly the story that I'm going to use. I mean, that's the difference between a good presentation and an excellent presentation. Good
Mhm.
presentations, they tell stories. Excellent presentations, they tell stories with intention that leads you to your ultimate call to action.
Yes, that's amazing because I actually have a storytelling coach, and that's the format that we use. Where, yes, in a journal, I mean, stories from childhood all the way up until now and finding the meaning or the lesson behind it. So, people who are watching this, listening, I'm going to tell you already, if this is part of the formula that Danny uses and you fit into that category of who he and his business partners work with, I would encourage you to connect with him because I already know that you will be coached in the right direction. That is an excellent start. So, how exactly can people connect with you? I'll have it in the show notes. But if they want to learn more about you, either to hire you to speak or present, or even want to hire you as their coach, their speaking coach, how can they connect with you?
Well, as a thank you to you, Alethea, and your audience for having to listen to me tell stories, I wanted to give everybody a freebie. So if you go to freestoryguide.com, guide like a tour guide, freestoryguide.com, I'm going to give everybody their own complimentary, well-crafted story blueprint. What this is the actual process that Coach Jimmy and I take our clients through to help you create your well-crafted story. What this does for you is it takes the guesswork out of what story should I use and where should I put it in my presentation? And what this means for you is you now have an actual system to convert all of your audiences into clients. You can get that at freestoryguide.com. And I just, again, want to thank you, Alethea, for having me today. You're just a joy, and I appreciate all that you're doing.
Thank you. And we aren't quite done yet.
Cool.
So this is going to be the last question. Is in thinking about everything, you're quite accomplished. You have overcome a lot and you're still standing so strong. Take us to this question is when you think about that boy that you were who stuttered and still tried to navigate life, even with that stifled voice that you refused to let stay shut. Tell us about how living with no limitations is even going to continue to take you further in this next chapter of your life.
Well, I mean, everybody has a decision. You can be Eeyore or you can be Tigger. I mean, I come home from work. I'm like, "Hey, honey, how was your day?" And my wife's like, "Thanks for noticing me. We're very different people. I'm interested in how our kids develop." But you have a choice all the time. I mean, whether I was teaching my little ones or my older ones, as they exited my classroom for the day, they always had to hear the same refrain. I always reminded them, "Remember, kids, education is valuable, but execution is priceless. Knowledge is not
Mhm.
power. Only applied knowledge is power. Knowing what the right thing to do and doing the right thing are two very different things. So let's go out, do the right thing, and make this world a better place." And so I believe that. I have Pollyanna glasses, rose-colored glasses. I believe in the solution, not the problem. I don't hang around people that are part of the problem. That's why I listen to your podcast. It's part of the solution. It's something that lifts me up. I always learn something. I'm a naturally curious person. I wish more people, I think we're doing a disservice to a lot of our students by making them not as curious, by forcing them to do a lot of things that are frankly pointless. I want kids to always have that when they leave my classroom, I want them understanding, hey, this is just the start. There's so many things for me to still learn. I like what the UCLA basketball coach John Wooden used to say. He said, it's the things we learn after we know it all that make the biggest difference in life. And so I'm
Mm.
excited to still be a learner. That's why I listen to you, Alethea. You're always teaching. It's just part of who you are.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Power Transformation Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. It helps us inspire even more listeners. And don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who could use a little power in their transformation. Until next time, keep bouncing back, keep rising, and be good to yourself and to others.